Hello everyone, this is PKO Entertainment and we're back again. I'm going to talk football now and talk about the Premier League and the final round of matches on the final day of the competition. And despite the fact that Liverpool had won the title a couple of weeks ago already, there were still issues of relegation and Champions League qualification to resolve. So we're just going to quickly talk about those events and review the teams that were involved in the various situations that were going to arise from the results. So as usual with these football videos, if you don't know all of the results or all of the games involved, I advise you to stop watching this now, go back and catch up with all the results and then come back to this video, because I will be talking about all of the results or all of the important results that went on in today's final day. So as mentioned before, we talk about the relegation situation, and the three teams involved were Aston Villa, Bournemouth and Watford. The basic scenario here was that Bournemouth and Watford needed to win, while Aston Villa only needed to draw. And the results were as follows: that Aston Villa did indeed get their draw. It was a 1-1 result against West Ham. This meant that both Bournemouth and Watford were set down because they could only get 34 points, and Aston Villa with their draw got 35. So Bournemouth actually did what they were required to do. They beat Everton 3-1 away from home. That's a great result. I think that was Everton's first home loss this season, and really Bournemouth through this performance have really shot themselves in the foot, because I think they've lost their previous 9 away games. So had they just been a bit more efficient and won a couple of wins away from home, they wouldn't have been in this situation. But 3-1, that's a great result from them, and they couldn't do any more. That's all they had to do. They had to win, and win well, and hope that the other teams would falter, and unfortunately Aston Villa didn't falter. Watford, of course, they lost 3-2 to Arsenal. 2 goals from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, just finishing one short of the golden boot behind Jamie Vardy on here. Tierney also got the 3rd goal for Arsenal. So a good result for Arsenal overall. It's always good to have a win going into next week's FA Cup final, so that bodes well for them. Watford, unfortunately, they tried hard. Troy Deeney got a penalty and then Danny Welbeck scored a second, but it was never enough really. And as usual, the damage is not done on the final day, the damage is done throughout the games, throughout the season. So unfortunately for Bournemouth and Watford, they are both down, and Aston Villa managed to stay up. So the other issue, of course, was the Champions League qualification. Going into this last day, Chelsea were 3rd, Manchester United were 4th, along with Leicester. So Chelsea only needed a draw, and we had a great shootout match between Leicester and Man United. Essentially the victor of that match would be the team who would qualify, and it ended up being Manchester United who emerged victorious with a 2-0 win over Leicester in what was really quite a cagey game. I think Leicester had more of the ball, they dominated more of possession. Manchester United were kind of just keeping firm, keeping solid, not really venturing too much, because I believe they knew they only really needed to draw. They didn't really need to go out and take too much risks to get the victory, whereas Leicester knew they had to win, especially knowing that Chelsea were at home to Wolves. So it was a kind of a steady game, and then once Martial went through and got brought down both by Johnny Evans and Wes Morgan, VAR replayed that, and it looks like Johnny Evans has nicked the ball, but Wes Morgan's tackle on Martial was the one that brought him down. Bruno Fernandes continued his penalty scoring streak, and then as Leicester pushed forward, there was a real blunder mistake from Schmeichel late on in the game. I don't know what he was doing. He was complete control of the ball. Lingard was running at him, and he does this annoying thing a lot of keepers do. They look to shape to clear the ball, and they try to turn in as if they're trying to be clever, and most of the time it doesn't work. And yet his mistake just cost them the 2nd goal. But this was late on, and I think Brendan Rodgers and Leicester kind of knew that it was gone by then, because obviously Leicester had to win. So that result, along with the fact that Chelsea scored a comfortable 2-0 win at Wolves, that meant then that both Chelsea and Manchester United qualified for the Champions League, and Leicester ended up finished 5th. And I think overall that is a good turnaround for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's had various ups and downs. We all remember when he took over first at Man United, he had that great run, and then they had various amount of losses, so it's kind of been up and down. But I think now that he's qualified them into the Champions League, that will give him a bit more clout and a bit more authority when he goes to the board and asks them for more funds so he can go and get the best players that he requires. And Manchester United now, of course, will have better calibre of position going forward for next season, and also with the lure of the Champions League, they'll be able to hopefully attract a better calibre or higher calibre of players going forward. And this goes the same for Chelsea, and I think it's probably even a bigger achievement for Frank Lampard, because as we all know, Chelsea had that transfer ban going into play this season, so Chelsea couldn't sign anybody, so they basically had the players that they had from last season, and they, of course, they lost Hazard to Real Madrid. So I think, considering all the restrictions that Lampard's had, and the fact that, he's only previously managed Derby, going into a big job like Chelsea, to manage to finish in the top 4 and get qualification, I think that's a great achievement. I think that's a great result for Chelsea, even more so than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I'd say. So that bodes Chelsea well. Hopefully they'll start celebrating and lose focus for the FA Cup final, but we'll wait and see. So that's a great achievement, for both Man United and Chelsea to finish in the top 4. And I think Leicester, overall, even though finishing 5th, I think is exceeding expectations for Leicester, I think they'll look back on it and they'll feel a little bit disappointed. They really kind of let themselves down, because they seem to have that top 4 spot locked down for weeks and weeks. They were comfortably clear. There was a point, I think, when they were looking at maybe finishing 3rd for the season, and they just let themselves really go in the last kind of 4 or 5 weeks, and really let themselves down and didn't achieve the full potential of the positioning that they should have done. But still, I think a great achievement for Brendan Rodgers to finish, in the top half, such a high, and they can still get the Europa League participation next season. So he'll be looking to build on that forward for the following season. So overall, yes, it was just a very eventful day in the Premier League. Lots of goals going in. We had the 5-0 win, of course, for Manchester City, which resulted, of course, in David Silva's final league game for the club. He's been, I think, for over 10 years, regarded by many as one of the best Manchester City players and also one of the best Premier League players overall. Jamie Vardy, as I mentioned before, he ended up finishing the Golden Boot winner. I think he had 23, and Danny Ings and Aubameyang resulted on 22. Liverpool finished off their final game with a 3-1 win away to Newcastle. They ended the points tally in the league in 99, and they equalled the record-breaking amount of wins. I think it was 32 wins for the season. So they were already happy, of course. They won the league a couple of weeks ago, and maybe they'll look back at it and think, maybe they could have broken the records overall and really set themselves apart. They could have potentially gone the season unbeaten and got the most amount of wins, but they won't care at this point. They're happy that they've won, and they will be very happy going forward for the season. So that's overall really the main headlines for the final day. I always think it's just worth mentioning, of course, Spurs did get into the Europa League positioning as well, so well done to Mourinho. But I think overall, a good job for football in general. We all wondered after this long delay from the COVID situation, would football bounce back? Would it be able to resume? There was debates back and forth whether the league should be voided and the various ramifications if a decision like that ever took place. But no, they got themselves together, they got the testing protocols and social distancing regulations in place, and they've done a really good job. It's really been, I think, a successful endeavour to get the league season finished, because as I've mentioned before in previous videos, that was most important, to make sure that the league season was finished. The cup tournaments can take a step back, but the league had to finish because it's an overall cumulative effect on the overall season, and they've done that pretty much well. I don't think there's been too much news of any positive corona tests between the players. I think everything has pretty much gone on, pretty much without a hitch. So I think all good mentions around. Well done to everybody involved, from the broadcasters to the grounds people to all the other teams involved. And just a final statement, I think it states a lot for other sports involved, particularly we're talking about tennis and the likes of boxing, two sports that are really still in a standstill and really caught in no man's land when they're going to start up again, what they're going to do. I think for me, when you look at football and the fact that you've got 22 players on the pitch, if they're able to carry on and participate in their vacation, then I think there's no reason why boxing, and definitely no reason why tennis cannot. As I mentioned before, tennis is one of the most socially distant, safe sports. So I think football has done really well and shown an example that yes, you can continue during this time of the corona pandemic, and make sure that all fans can still enjoy the sports going forward. So congratulations to everybody involved in the Premier League. Now I think we will resume again on September the 12th, I think it was announced, so they'll get a bit of a break now, and I think the transfer window is going to be available to October, I believe, but correct me if I'm wrong, so there'll have to be a few adjustments there. We have still got, of course, as I mentioned, the FA Cup final next week on August the 1st, and then a couple of weeks after, I think we will resume with the European tournaments, both the Champions League and Europa League going forward. But overall, just a very eventful and very action-packed final day of the Premier League. Obviously, congratulations to Liverpool already. I've done a previous video on that, but also well done to Aston Villa for staying up. Well done to Chelsea and Manchester United, of course, for getting the Champions League spots. And yeah, that's it overall, really. Arsenal, from our perspective, okay, disappointing finish. We finished 8th. I kind of knew months ago, Arsenal weren't going to get a very high finish. I think it's more about getting that FA Cup win next week, and then looking forward, hopefully Arteta can get the funds that he requires going forward to really start to bolster and enhance the quality of that squad, because they're definitely going to need more players than what they've got. What they've got right now won't be enough to make any impression next year. They've really got to look now to enhance the quality of that squad going forward. So that's it overall. Those are my thoughts on the final day of the Premier League season 2019-2020. Let me know what you think in the comment below. Are you happy that you've managed to get your fix of football now for the last couple of weeks? What do you think of the job that they've done? Do you think they've done a great job in terms of being able to finish the Premier League? And do you think it shows a good example for other sports that are still stuck in limbo to try and follow and get their own vacations back on track and make sure that they can complete the seasons as well for this year? So those are my thoughts for now. Take care of yourselves. Please press those subscribe and like buttons to help me grow this channel. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.